Hello and welcome to the Island Lamb and I'm Diane. This is episode 22, Spring and Summer Knits and Fibers. And for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, I live on a small island called Block Island, which is off the southern coast of Rhode Island in the United States. And for those of you who have been following me, thank you so much for your comments on the last episode. You seem to really enjoy that baby sweater. And I do have some other great baby sweater knitting patterns that I have made over the years. And I don't have the garments, obviously, because I've gifted them, but I will try to show you some of those patterns and some of those photos in some of my next episodes. But this episode, I wanted to focus more on some of my spring knits and a little information on cotton, and also talk to you a little bit about what's going on right now on the island. So my dad always said, wait until Memorial Day weekend to plant your flowers, your flower boxes or your flowers in the ground, especially in New England. And living on Block Island adds a whole nother layer of preparing for planting, because we have our own weather system, it seems. We watch the local news and they tell us what's happening on the mainland, and then we have to kind of figure out, well, what is that going to mean on Block Island? So for instance, last week weather went something like this. We may have a freeze on Wednesday night. We could have higher than normal temperatures on Thursday. Look forward to gale winds on Friday and maybe some downpours. So that all happened within like a 4 or 5 day, couple of days in a row. So I bought my plants and I have my window boxes ready to plant, and everything right now is sitting in our potting shed. And little by little, I'm going to start bringing them out. And I think I'm going to include some photos of some of those packs of flowers and plants that are sitting out ready for me to plant. But I am going to wait until Memorial Day weekend to do that. The other thing that's going on here is the migration of birds has just been incredible. The hummingbirds come up from Mexico and up from the Caribbean. And we hung our feeder out about 2 weeks ago, and we're enjoying those sweet, fast, fun little hummingbirds zipping around our yard. And we hang our hummingbird right over a trumpet vine, and that trumpet vine won't really bloom until late July or even the beginning of September, maybe late July, beginning of August rather. And in the meantime, they know that trumpet vine is there, and they know that hummingbird feeder is there, so they're with us. We're seeing the finches have turned yellow. We've got purple martins nesting in the yard. We have red-winged blackbirds. So at 4:30 in the morning, it's a cacophony. It's a symphony of chitter-chattering and tweeting. And I think some of the babies are tweeting, and the mothers are out looking for food. So it's just incredible here with the birds and paying attention to the weather. So, okay, what am I wearing? So for those of you who have been following me, you know that I had been working on this jean jacket for a while. I'm going to put my glasses on here. So in episode 7, I think I introduced the whole concept and idea. My mom had made a jean jacket many, many years ago when I was a teenager. I have been searching for a pattern. I finally found it. The yarn company is Circulo. They're out of Brazil, and the yarn is from Circulo as well. So in episode 7, I introduced the concept. In episode 11, I think I have got it maybe on the mannequin. I hadn't finished some of the back seaming, so I have finished that now. And the seaming, the outer seaming is done with Circulo's yarn Clea, which is really like a thread. The yarn is jeans. It's called jeans, and it's also both by Circulo, and the pattern is by Circulo. And I'm also including some photos of the back of this. But that Clea is what I used to backstitch on these strips of crochet that are forming all the details of this jacket. And there's a beautiful strip across the back, and I'm showing you that. It's on the sleeve. I bought the Levi style dungaree buttons. I wore this last weekend on Mother's Day. It was very warm and comfortable, and really looks like a jean jacket, especially from a distance. It isn't until you get right on top of it that you go, oh my goodness, is that knitted? So I will say it was a challenge. There are some tutorials online, and I think I mentioned that in one of those episodes, and I'll also put that in the show notes. They do a pretty good job of getting you most of the way. I think it's kind of up to you to figure out what you're going to do with a lot of this and how it's going to fit. That doesn't really give you any directions or measurements. So what I did is I got out one of my favorite jean jackets and I laid it out next to the finished garment without, these little strips on yet. And I measured where these things happened on my jean jacket. And then I pinned down all these pieces and I started sewing them on. It took me a little while to get, the right kind of stitch. It is a running stitch. And I think it came out really nice. I'm very happy. And my mother was quite impressed because, like I said, it all started because my mom made one of these jean jackets back like when I was maybe, I don't know, in my late teens. And I showed you this last episode. This is the Eyelet Pullover. This is a Rosemary Drysdale design. And I had the back done, and I think I had a piece of the front done. I wore this Mother's Day weekend, and I'm going off to visit my uncle in Florida, and I'm going to wear this, I think, to fly in with a pair of white capris or a pair of white jeans. This is the Leverette yarn. It's a Valley yarn from Webb's. It was on their sale. I think it's still on sale. 100% cotton. The pattern is, I said, a Rosemary Drysdale. It's called the Eyelet Pullover. It's 2 pieces. This is the front. See all the way across, and the back is just a little bit higher in the back. You stop a little sooner. It's bottom up. You stop a little sooner to work on this neckline. I enjoyed the fact that I didn't have to make sleeves. All you do is you pick up around, after you seam the sides and the shoulder, you pick up these stitches and you just do a rib, and it was a 1x1 rib just like in the bottom. I'm going to make this again for sure. That made me think a little bit about cotton in general, because this is 100% cotton. I believe I've shown you a few things that I've made with cotton, like that market bag that was cotton, 100% cotton, grown in the United States, that I got at Walmart. I showed you that baby sweater and that soft pink with those little blue bobble rows. That was 100% cotton, made in Turkey. And so I was thinking a little bit about cotton in general and things to know about cotton, especially if you haven't knit a whole lot of summer or spring knits in this fiber. There are different types of cotton. There is this cotton, 100% cotton. There is mercerized cotton. Now, mercerized cotton is a very interesting, I think, beautiful cotton to knit with. And I'm going to show you a project that I'm working on right now with this cotton, but I want to talk about some of the differences. So mercerized cotton. So in 1844, a man by the name of John Mercer came up with a process to treat cotton with a 20 to 30% sodium hydroxide solution followed by a wash. And what he found that did is the yarn had a better affinity for dye. It improved the luster. And so another man by the name of Horace Lowe in 1890 added another process. He added high tension to the process. So by adding high tension, a bath of sodium hydroxide solution, we now have a yarn that has a better affinity for dye, improved luster, increased tensile strength, pretty much a reduction in shrinkage after the garment's made and you go to wash it, and a lot less lint. So, a little comparison. When I was knitting this, I did notice the fibers a little bit, and certainly when I started playing with the gray Leverette, I think you saw I also bought a stone color Leverette yarn. I noticed the gray flecks on my white pants. That doesn't bother me. I don't mind a little bit of that. However, when you work with a mercerized cotton, you're not going to have that lint at all. You're not going to have that little bit of fuzziness. So to continue with the idea of the different kinds of cotton. So we've got your basic cotton, we have your mercerized cotton, and for those of you who love good cotton sheets, you may be familiar with Pima cotton, Supima cotton, Egyptian cotton. So Pima cotton and Supima are primarily grown in the United States. That's a United States term. When you see, but what is special and unique about Pima and Supima cotton is that it is an extra long staple. So if you see the acronym ESL, that's what that means, extra long staple. It makes for a very soft, strong fiber. It is resistant to fraying and tearing and pilling, wrinkling and fading. So perfect for sheets, right? I don't know about you, but I have bought some sheets many years ago that, started to pill like right around where your feet are on the sheet. And I like a crisp, cool, non-pilling sheet. So thinking about that as far as our knitting goes. So we've got mercerized, we have Sapima, and we have Pima cotton. So I guess you really have to think about what is it you're making and what do you want from it. So with my market bags, I don't need the luxury of a luster. I don't need to worry about, you know, fit and size and shrinkage. I want sturdy. I want something that I know when I put my towel in and my book and my sunscreen, it's not going to stretch to the floor. It's going to be robust. So I use those 100% cottons that I get at Walmart, let's say. I've used a linen and a cotton blend too. A baby sweater, I want soft. I want Pima. I want Sapima. Myself, it depends what I'm wearing. I don't want a scratchy cotton on me. So this cotton, this Leverette cotton was just perfect. And now what I have on the needles is something where I'm looking for that sheen and I'm looking for the strength. And I don't want it to pill. I don't want it to get on my jeans. So it's kind of interesting because I mentioned Rosemary Drysdale in the last 2 episodes, and I had the pleasure of meeting Rosemary Drysdale a few summers ago on Block Island, and it was such a coincidental, haphazard meeting that I still can't believe it even happened. So I was getting ready to go to the Vogue. I knew I was going to the Vogue Live, very first Vogue Live in New York City in January of the following year. So it was the summer before. I was knitting quite a bit. I was doing the arts and crafts fair, so I was really knitting for that. And I was thinking about going to Vogue and meeting designers. I knew about Rosemary Drysdale because she was one of the editors of Vogue Knitting Magazine. There was Carla Scott. I knew all these names. And I knew of Rosemary Drysdale's patterns. So I have a friend who owns a shop in town. She knows I'm a knitter. She knew I was doing the trunk shows. And she said to me, oh, by the way, a good friend of mine has a friend who is a knitter. And I believe she works for Vogue Knitting Magazine. And she's going to be here this summer. And there's going to be a little cocktail party. And I suggested they should invite you to this cocktail party. And I said, oh, what's the woman's name? And she said, it's Rosemary Drysdale. Rosemary Drysdale. So I had cocktails with Rosemary Drysdale. I talked about knitting with her. So anyway, here I am knitting Rosemary Drysdale patterns and remembering that lovely cocktail party. And since then I have seen her several times and she's lovely. And I told you a little bit about her in the last episode. She's got quite a background in embroidery and knitting and writing patterns. So this is the pattern I'm working up right now. This is called I Love to Make Waves. Perfect for Block Island, perfect for a summer knit. The yarn called for Taki yarn. They're classic cotton classic. I'm using this mercerized cotton, which I'll tell you about in a second. It's really fun. You've got all these drop stitches. It's in pieces, so there's a front and a back, the 2 sleeves. And I'm going to show you what I'm working on. So like I sometimes do, and I've mentioned this to you before, I will often swatch on a sleeve if it's a bottom up pattern. And so here's my sleeve. And it doesn't look like it could possibly go around your arm, right? But it's going to be blocked, of course. And I'm increasing, I think every 14 rows, I'm increasing a stitch on each side. I'll just wrap this around my arm so you can see how beautiful this is going to be. And when it's blocked, it's really going to open up those drop stitches. Really fun. Fun to drop a stitch intentionally. So I want to tell you a little story about this yarn because it was my very first trip to Italy and it was 20 years or more. We moved here 23 years ago. It was shortly after we moved to Block Island. My mother had been going pretty regularly with a group of friends, all women. And that year I was free to go. I was able to go. And so my first trip to Italy was the Amalfi Coast. We stayed in Sorrento. It was one of the days where we took a small little tour into this town, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was known for its manufacturing of shawls and scarves and silks. And we know Italy is like fantastic for fiber. And so we went into this beautiful, large, almost a warehouse, but in Italy, a warehouse meaning it was probably a 1,000-year-old structure, and bought some shawls and some scarves. And after we came out, we walked through a little outdoor market where they were selling sunglasses and purses and all kinds of things. And it was towards the end of the market. People were starting to close down their tables and their booths. And I came to this table, and it was an elderly man, and he was selling yarn, and he was selling Italian knitting patterns. And so they had this yarn, and this is this mercerized cotton. You can see how tightly twisted. You can see that sheen. This is mercerized. And it is Filigrana Nova by Jaeger, made in Italy. So I bought it. I bought some black. I bought the aqua. And I was having just a moment with this gentleman. He was speaking Italian. I was speaking English. I know very little Italian. I was with my godmother, who does speak the language. And in the end, when it came time to tell him really what I wanted and what I wanted to pay for, she helped me out a little bit. And I'm including a picture of a beautiful Italian knitting book that he gave me at the end. And, we had that moment of, we enjoyed each other's company, and he wanted me to take that with him. So I'm really looking forward to wearing this sweater, knowing where the yarn came from, knowing it's a Rosemary Drysdale pattern, knowing I'm working in mercerized cotton, that I'm going to have this for a long, long time. It's not going to pill. It's going to look great with white. I'll probably wear a little tee or a little tank underneath that. So I just want to share the concepts of all these different cottons. So if you're going to the store and you're looking for really good cotton sheets, another tip that I've learned is if it says Egyptian cotton, and I don't know about you, but I've always felt like Egyptian cotton was probably the best we could get. Sapima cotton and Pima cotton are considered some of the finest in the world. Egyptian cotton, you have to be very careful if you're going to buy Egyptian cotton. You're going to have to be careful of your tag. If it says Egyptian cotton, their law says as long as the cotton was grown in Egypt, they can put Egyptian cotton. Now you're going to have to really be aware of your thread count. Was it grown on the Nile? Okay, there's all these little extra things to get the quality of Egyptian cotton that you're looking for. But if you go into the store and you see Pima cotton, and it gives you a thread count of say 350 or so, you're going to have a nice crisp sheet that is not going to pill. So that was just a little extra goodie I wanted to share with you. So I think, gosh, is that all I have for today? I think it is. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a look at all those containers of plants I have that want to be planted, and I don't really want to plant them yet. I'm going to make sure they're watered, and I'm going to pinch off. I bought a whiskey barrel. It's plastic, but it looks like a whiskey barrel, a half a whiskey barrel. And I'm going to try something different this year with my tomato plants. I'm going to put the tomato plants in the barrel instead of my raised bed. I'm going to plant basil around that tomato plant. And every so often I'm going to put in marigolds, because I did learn from a few podcasters that putting marigolds in will help prevent that tomato worm that can really do a number on your plants if you're not careful. I didn't have them last year, but last year I only grew cherry tomatoes. So this year I bought a couple of beefsteak tomato plants and some cherry tomatoes. I've got my basil, I've got my marigolds. I may put those in that whiskey barrel, and if the weather goes bad while I'm visiting my uncle, I know my husband will bring that into the potting shed. I bought some impatiens to put into my secret garden. I'm hoping to share in June, when the wild roses are in bloom, my secret garden with you. And I also replaced my window boxes this year. They really needed replacing, and so I've got the liners coming, and I usually just do geraniums and lobelia and some diamond frost. I like a little red, white, and blue in there. So over the next few weeks, as we continue to talk about our spring and summer knits and some of those cool fibers that we can use if we're going to knit in the spring and summer, I'll share some of my updates on my garden with you. All right, so listen, you guys have a great week. I'll visit my uncle, and when I get back, I will share what's going on in the yard. And I hope you're enjoying gardening and enjoying your knits in this time of year. Thank you.